Hey everyone, Jared Scanlon with you with Bobby Wilson once again. This is part two of our conversation, which we discuss just the world of catching and baseball in general. And as we talked about in episode one, we're eventually going to get to story time and maybe reminiscing on some past Rangers teams of which Bobby was a part. But there's so much that's going on just in the world of catching. And Bobby is in charge of the catchers at the major league level, major league catching coach, also the coordinator for all catchers throughout the system. So he's working with the catchers, not just at the major league level, but all levels and their development and the growth and the direction of that position. And so we kind of had a general overview last week in the first episode. We got some interesting visuals here we're going to take you through and hopefully help you understand various elements of catching, like the dynamic between the pitcher and the catcher and game calling and game planning and how you assess the job of a catcher, what they, I guess, get graded on and what sort of assessments that they get game to game and throughout the season. So Bobby, if you're ready to go, I think we're going to share the screen. And let's see here. We're going to start with this right here, which goes over the pitcher-catcher relationship. Now, this is something you put together?
Yeah, so this is kind of something that we present to especially the guys in the minor league, just exactly what goes into, the series grind, the daily grind, and understanding that, our must-haves, what's the most important thing to us as Texas Rangers catchers. And, we've talked about this with you guys. The number one thing for us is pitcher-catcher relationship. And with Chris Young coming on, he was excited to see that our main priority as catchers was to take care of the pitchers, himself being a pitcher for a long time. But this is, again, something that comes from Mike Scioscia and something that he hammered home with us every single day, how important it was to build that relationship with them, not just on the field, but off the field, understanding what makes them tick, what guys you can pat on the butt and what guys you have to, jump down their throat. So this just kind of gives us a synopsis, an overlook of kind of everything that's involved with that. So you can go to that next one.
Yeah, so the molecule chart. So what's this?
Yeah, so the molecule chart, this is kind of what we use for our game calling. And you see here at the top left, it has three things that we focus on. Pitcher strengths is always going to be number one. And something that we've seen with guys coming into pro ball is that they don't know how to call a game because they've never called a game. They go to a big Division I school, where coaches are making a ton of money. They don't get to call their own games. And we've kind of seen it trickle down even to high school and even travel ball, where coaches are calling all the games. So we have to kind of speed up the learning curve with these guys and give them something simple to start with, and then we kind of peel back more layers to the onion and make it get a little bit deeper as far as other situations and stuff like that. But you can see here, so pitcher strengths is the number one thing that we focus on. What can our pitcher command? What can he do? What can he throw for strikes? What's his strikeout pitch? And basically that's where we start, right? And pitcher strengths, in my opinion, will always be number one. It can't ask a pitcher to do something that he's not capable of doing, because that's going to, either put him in a bad count or potentially give up runs. Then we kind of jump to the next two, which are hitter's weakness and game situation. Brett Hayes does our advanced stuff here, and he does an unbelievable job. One of the best I've ever seen, honestly. It's in depth. It's everything you could possibly want to know about that hitter that we're facing. But with this, I always say that hitter's weakness and game situation, those are interchangeable kind of components to how we're going to put together a game plan. Sometimes game situation might say, we got to go for a punch out right here, right? So, we're going to go to, and it kind of rolls back up to pitcher strengths. What is our pitcher's strikeout pitch going to be? So when we do that, we know this is the pitch that we need to use. And for the minor league guys, we've actually added a fourth on this, which would be pitch development, right? And that comes from Jeff Andrews, who I thought it was a great idea to bring that in, because with the guys in the minor leagues, these three still hold true as the top three that we would use. But that pitch development is something that we have to have for our younger pitchers, so they can get those pitches into a game, and with those pitch developments, we try to pick counts when we can use them. And then, like on the molecule chart here, you can see what we have is every count, right? And what we know in the game is that when a hitter gets in a leverage count, that OPS, on base plus slugging, we know that jumps tremendously. So the whole point of this molecule chart is to keep us in advantage counts. We want to keep our pitcher in advantage counts, because we know when we go 0-0, 0-1, 0-2, we know that OPS drops tremendously. And if it goes 1-0, 2-0, we know that OPS jumps. So the whole point of this is, what pitch can my pitcher command to keep me in leverage counts? That's basically what that is.
Okay, a couple questions. One, pitch development. So Joe pitcher gets drafted, and fans who follow the draft or follow the minors, they're going to hear a lot, hey, he's got a good fastball and a slider and is, working on his changeup, or, whatever the combination is. And so I think, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, in order to work on these pitches, yes, you work on them in bullpen, side sessions, stuff like that, off season. But at some point, you got to work on these pitches in a game situation. And this is one reason why it's tough to totally interpret, a young pitcher, or any young players' minor league stats as like the definitive way to evaluate their growth and their performance. Because if I'm Joe pitcher and I don't have a good changeup, but man, that pitch is going to be necessary for me as I get older, you're going to challenge me to throw that pitch in game situations. And that's kind of what that pitch development fourth line that's not on here, but you were talking about, is referring to, right? Finding the right spots to allow those pitchers to work those pitches that are in the development phase into game situations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, if it's a pitch that they're developing, like, we're not going to use it in an 0-2 count. We're not going to use it in a high leverage count. We're going to pick, obviously earlier counts to use it, but there's going to be a number that they're going to put on it. This guy needs to throw, if it's a changeup, he needs to throw a changeup 15% of the time. So where are we going to find that 15% and kind of sneak that in, so we can use it in the game? So yeah, that's exactly right.
And at the major league level, especially right now with the way the roster is, there are a lot of young guys who still are developing. And I know that guys are always developing, whether you're 25 or 35, but how much is that fourth line a part of what goes on at the major league level with some of these young pitchers who are still kind of on the up and up?
I think pretty much all those guys have developed those pitches, the feel for them. It's still the major leagues. These guys in the major leagues, they're trying to get out. They're trying to get outs, because these are the numbers that go on the back of your bubblegum card. So, the pitch development really isn't in the equation as much as at the major league level. But there is certain numbers that we'll put on it, like, hey, this guy needs to throw this percentage of breaking balls, or, if it's a curveball slider, he needs to use more curveballs, so it's individually based. But, like I said, at the major league level, like, these are the three that we use: the pitcher's strengths, hitter's weakness, game situation, with game situation and hitter's weakness kind of being interchangeable. But again, it's I tell our guys, I say, listen, when you're calling a game, give me reasons why you called a certain pitch, and when they give me a reason, then it's easier for me to coach off that. But if they just say, I don't know, I just called a fastball. It's like, well, why did you do that? And that's what, we talk about, like in game, in inning adjustments that we make. Like those are the conversations we have. We go through pitch recall. How did you pitch this guy? Why did you pitch him that way? And this way they can retain that information because they tell me back what they did. So this way I know that they're thinking during the game and they're not just blindly putting down fingers. And that's where this molecular chart comes into play. When we get to the next, we have the PowerPoint on the actual molecule chart. I can show them, why and how certain things are called and what pitches are command pitches to put us in those advantage counts.
You want to go to that right now?
Let's just finish up this one, and then we can jump on to that one. Yeah, so this is just, you guys kind of read through that, our pitcher catcher communication, just how important it is for everything we do, and these are the standards that we've set over the last year and a half of what's important to us. The catching position, first one in, last to leave, like that's, we're the quarterbacks, right? We have to do the most preparation of anybody on the field. And it takes and that's the standard that we're trying to set, that we're available, we're here, we're not leaving as soon as the game's over. We're not showing up late. This is who and what we are. This is Mike Sosha's big one, the offense from defense. There's a lot of guys that we had in Anaheim that, where they were great offensive players, and Mike just could not stand it, and that's why myself and a couple other guys got a lot of run, is because we weren't that great at offense, so we had to be good at defense. You know what I mean? So he loved that part of it. Body language, catching bullpen, something that people don't talk about a lot, and that's, it's so important. That's where you build relationships with the pitchers. You see their stuff, you understand it, and then you're able to have those conversations. But if you're never present for the pitchers, how are they going to trust you? How are they going to lean on you when it gets tough? So that's a big thing that we've talked about. And that goes into the setup there. That's just exactly where the pitcher wants you. And then talking between innings, we talk about post-game interaction, which is good outing versus bad outing, which bad outing, let the guy be that night. You know what I mean? If he didn't have a good outing, like the last thing he wants to do is talk about it. Now, if he approaches you, you have to be ready to go. And then a good outing, a guy has a good outing, like, let him know, right there, while it's fresh in his mind, like, that was a, nice job today. That goes a long way. Just those little things and the feel for it. So it's something that we have to kind of introduce to all of our guys, because nobody teaches you this. Nobody says this is how you're supposed to do it. This is what's going to happen. They just assume that, which, some guys have to find out the tough way. But if we can get ahead of that, speed up that learning curve, it puts us in a good position next to or whatever. But, just to get into a couple baseball stories, I had Jake Odorizzi in Tampa, and we talk about building relationships with people. And I was catching Odo, and I, for whatever reason, I just could not get on the same page with him. We just didn't really click. We didn't have a understanding of what, I didn't have an understanding of what he was trying to do. He had a bad outing, a few times that I caught him, and so I'll never forget, we were in Chicago, and he goes, "Hey Bobby, let's go get lunch. Let's just go sit down and talk." Right? And I said, "Well, I would absolutely love that." And actually, I actually won one of these Italian beef subs that we see all over the dugout with the Bueno Italian beef subs. I said, "I'd actually love one of those as well. So can we do it over an Italian beef sub?" So we go sit down in this restaurant. Drew Smiley was with us as well. He was one guy that I connected with really well. But so we went and sat down at this restaurant, had a Italian beef hoagie, and we just talked. We talked about a little bit of baseball, but more family. More how good the Italian beef was with all the grilled vegetables on it, and we took a step in our relationship as one friends, but that segued into success after with catching him. He knew that who I was and what I was about, and it really turned into us being able to be on the same page. And from that point on, we were dialed. You know what I mean? Like we I was thinking what he was thinking, he was thinking what I was thinking, and we had success from that point. And that's the kind of stuff I try to tell the younger guys is like, get to know your pitchers, bullpens, outside, build relationships with them, find out where they're from, where they live, what they like, their interests, any of that, because it really plays into, success on the field, in my opinion.
We talk on the broadcast all the time, and not just our broadcast. I think a lot of broadcasts, stories about baseball, any sort of baseball content. A lot of people will talk about the pitcher-catcher relationship and the added responsibilities for catchers because of the need to develop those relationships. But I think this is a great way of really demonstrating what that all entails and the time that it takes, whether it's, needing to go to lunch, and not that that's a chore. I mean, you guys probably had a great time, having that Italian beef sandwich, but
yeah,
that's a part of your day that could be spent doing other things that a right fielder doesn't need to worry about, right? Or a third baseman doesn't need to worry about. Not that camaraderie in general isn't important, but this is more with a direct purpose. And then getting to the ballpark, Joe, third baseman, goes, gets his hacks, takes his ground balls, plays on his phone and ready to go. But Jose Trevino and Jonah Heim, they've got to do that stuff. But then they've also got to make sure to get with that night's pitcher. Maybe they need to talk a little bit with the pitcher the day before. Maybe they need to hook up with a reliever. I mean, it is a lot. And I think it just kind of helps to illustrate all that is on a catcher's plate. And hopefully for people who weren't as aware, there's an added understanding now of, all that it entails to be a catcher. And that doesn't even cover the physical side of it. They're going to need to get probably more work, in the hot tub or ice baths or whatever, because physically it's more of a grind than it is playing other positions.
Absolutely.
So now
yeah,
exactly. So this is another big part of it. And again, this is another thing that, shortstops, third baseman, out position players, right? They've got a game plan. They have meetings to discuss that night's pitcher and the relievers, but it's not as cumbersome as what a catcher has to do with this. So what do we got here from a game planning standpoint when the Rangers get set to begin a new series?
Yeah. So this is, Brett Hayes does the bulk of this work for sure. But it's the series game planning. So basically what we're doing is we're going into that series based off of, previously facing that team, what they've done over the last 10 days, what they've done over the last month, and understanding, how we're going to attack those guys. Again, it's, and here's where our molecule chart kind of falls into play. It's pitcher strength, hitter's weakness, game situation, hitter's weakness, game situation, interchangeable, but always going at pitcher strengths. But when we're doing our series game planning, we are looking at how we're getting after these dudes, right? And you can kind of see here, like, the big part of this is the catchers collaborating. I tell our guys, like, talk amongst each other. If you see something different, say something, and our guys do a good job. So we'll meet. We have been meeting with just the catchers, Brett, myself, and the pitching coaches. And we kind of changed that over the last month to where now we're meeting with all the pitchers, all the catchers, which I like, because it's togetherness. We're all in this together kind of feel. So that's how we start. We're meeting now, but basically what we do is Brett puts together bullet points of, who how we're going to get after each hitter, and we just kind of go through that. But just to see, like, what are we looking at? Hot cold zones, right? Like, what zone does this guy hammer balls, and which zone is he cold in? So that's kind of what we look at. First pitch swinger, we identify who's hot, who's not, right? Which guy is swinging it well over the past 10 days, past 7 days, past series, and identify those guys as guys we need to be a little bit more careful with.
Can I ask a question about that? Let's say
Yeah.
I'm a great fastball hitter. My numbers, fastballs up against righties for the last 3 years of my career have been outstanding. But over the last 2 weeks, I can't hit an elevated fastball against a righty worth a lick. How do you balance my history versus what have you done for me lately type of stuff?
I think facing guys a lot has a lot to do with how they're going to attack them. But again, like, if you're struggling with that pitch, our game plans are so in depth. We know everything about every single hitter in the major leagues. Now, the big thing with that is, can we execute that pitch? If we talk about a guy like Mike Trout, who has an up and in hole that everybody in baseball knows about, right? But here's the problem: how many guys can actually execute that up and in pitch to get them out? And that's the kicker with this. It's like it's very hard for even major league pitchers to execute at we'll say even a 50% clip. If you were to have these guys throw 10 pitches, say I want you to throw up and in 10 pitches in this little window, they might hit 3 or 4 realistically. So understanding, if a guy is cold in one spot, yes, we're going to try to attack that, but there is no guarantee that that's going to be executed. So I think our guys focusing on making sure that we execute pitches in certain locations compared to, like, and that's part of that pitcher's strengths too, right? Like, if we know that a guy can't elevate and we have a sinker baller, we can't go to that location because he can't do that. So that's kind of like, but yes, I guess to answer your question, like, if we have somebody who's able to execute an elevated fastball against somebody who historically has hit it but has been struggling with it, it could be an injury that's going on. It could be something that's affecting them that they can't get to that pitch. So yes, that will be attacked, and yes, our guys do know about it. Like I said, then it goes to the execution of it. So
how long is
that's basically it.
I'm sorry, Bobby. How long is enough for it to be noteworthy? So obviously 1 game is probably not enough, but is a week, is 2 weeks, like, what is enough to where it's like, hey, it's worth knowing this, as opposed to just filling your mind with stuff that maybe isn't as valuable?
Well, I think that's the point of the bullet points, right, that Brett puts out. Instead of looking at, you can, when we get to the next couple of slides, you can see how in depth it really gets. But with the bullet points that Brett points out, it's like, those are the trends that we track, right? And it's over the last week, he's been hammering breaking balls, right? And it's okay, well, where are those breaking balls he's hammering? Are they strike breaking balls, or are they expanded off? So we have an understanding of that. So I would say 10 days usually is kind of what we look at, 10-day trend to see. That's kind of, because that's who they are right then. Right now, who is this guy? So that's what we look at. Just to jump in the last couple here, the splits versus right versus left. And the big thing for our catchers is reading swings, and that's where that collaboration of catchers comes in, is where we talk about, is he a pinball flipper? Is he, did you, and a lot of the game calling stuff is a lot of feel too. It's I watch the game from the dugout now, and it's tough for me to see certain things that I saw when I was behind the plate. Yeah. And there's feel that goes in that's involved with that. And that's why, as I said earlier, like, I talked to these guys about, why did you call that pitch? And it could be, well, I saw him move up in the box a little bit. I saw him, turn his back foot out like a Miggy Cabrera used to do. He used to turn his back foot open if he wanted to go to right field, and then he'd close it off if he wanted to pull. Those kind of things that you can't really see from the dugout, you can feel and see from behind home plate. So it's reading swings, understanding what those swings are telling you, and then making an educated decision after that.
All right, let's go to this game planning slide.
Yeah, so this is kind of just a generic one that we have. The one that this is the one we used to use. We actually have a different one now, with the heat mats being blue and red. But for this one, it was, green is go and red is no. That's how we kind of laid it out. If you see a green spot, like that's a good location to use that breaking ball. Or up and in fastball, you can see there green, that was our go. And it just shows you like where we need to go after this guy. And if it's red, like this guy does serious damage. He has slug. He has big numbers on those locations. So those are locations we try to stay away.
Got it.
But this is, for me, I was a visual learner, and I know a lot of the new generation come up is very visual. So we try to give them the best visuals possible. And like I said, ours have changed from what this is showing. But still, you can see the visual of like how we're going to attack certain hitters. Then the next one's kind of the one that gets a little in depth with how exactly we're going to, go after guys. And this has all of our stuff. First pitch swing of runners in scoring position, without runners in scoring position, numbers on breaking balls, and then kind of notes there on the right. But you can see like all of this stuff has to be digested, and this if obviously it's the first time for many people looking at this. This can look like a somewhat of a different language, but for our guys, they understand what each and every number means, and the importance of them not just getting this and looking at it, but making their own notes. I think that's the important part of this is I have our guys, okay, we'll give you the sheets, but I need you to write it down physically yourself, because I found when I wrote it down that I retain the information instead of just looking at it.
How important is it for the catcher going into a given game to, not necessarily know that off speed, no runners in scoring position, like right up here, 42% changeup, like not necessarily knowing 42 versus 43, but generally knowing all of the trends presented on this sheet?
Well, yeah, that's the job requirement.
So
they need to know.
And how long does that, I'm just thinking of from if this was like a math test, like I'd have to study and whatever. But like these guys, there's only 24 hours in the day, 3.5 hours are spent playing a game, an hour spent, batting practice, whatever, you're sleeping. I'm just like, how long would it take you? You get this sheet, you're getting ready for, to catch Mike Minor against the Indians. How long does it take you to fully just get all this information so that you know what it is and how to utilize it?
Well, and that's the thing with talking about it, making your own notes, right? All this information is, nobody remembers all this information, right? But what's important, that's kind of what I tell these guys. Like, we give you all this information, and the information, we bring it in, what I mean? So we get information from analytics, to Brett, to the rest of us, down to the catchers, right? So we'll take all of this information across this top hitter, all that stuff, and we'll shorten it into, possibly 8 words, right? It'd be, fastball down and away or up and in. It'll be, slider to the back foot, curveball back door, and change up down and away. And it's all short written on our catcher card, so they know exactly how they're going to pitch that guy.
Got it.
So that they should remember.
Do you like, Bobby, that now pitchers have study guides or however you want to characterize it. And I know maybe when you were playing, catchers had notes like the quarterback sleeve, but do you like that pitchers now, and I mean, defensive players have it with positioning, but that you're able to refer to a little index card, or do you think that it gets in the way of players truly, I guess, withholding the information and putting in the time to really embrace and understand it?
Yeah, and that's why I try to tell our guys, like, make your own, like, and the one thing that I don't want our guys doing is using this as a crutch, to where, oh, I'm not going to do any work because they're going to give me a card. Like, no, that's bull crap. Like, you're going to do the work. You're going to make your own card. Because that's what I did. My last few years, I made my own card. I wrote down the information, and then I gave it to our advanced guy and said, just check over this, put it on a card for me. And I kept it in my pocket. Our catchers in the big leagues, they keep it in their pocket because I don't want them. If they're stuck, we want them to use the information. If guys like, gosh, I don't know what to call here. Okay, we got that card for you. But I have ours, put them in their back pocket because I don't want them to use it as a crutch. I want them to learn, to understand. And at the beginning of this year, Hosey and Jonah had the least amount of games caught in Major League Baseball as a tandem out of the 30 clubs. So the part of this process is them figuring out themselves and not relying on everybody else to give them the information. So yes, I want our guys to look at the information, digest it, write it down themselves so they have a complete understanding. And most of it's staying away from damage, right?
Right.
Like that's, it's kind of like, how do you learn? It's by seeing things that you don't like or you don't care for, more so than things that you actually like, or you do things that trying to figure out how to word this. I learned what kind of coach I wanted to be by the way other people did things wrong, in my opinion. I took more of the stuff that they did that I didn't like to keep out more than the stuff that I did like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So game day planning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is essentially, let's go through a day in the life of a catcher, just specific to getting ready for the game as a catcher, not even worrying about their responsibilities as a hitter, but as a catcher in respects to that day or night's pitcher.
Yeah. So basically, when they get there, what I have them do is grab a lineup card or a projected lineup, and they'll go meet with Brett right away. For the most part, they'll meet with Brett, go over the day. If it's a team we play a lot, they don't have to do it as much. But if it's a new team, they'll meet with Brett and kind of go over, who our starter is that day and how we're going to use our starter's strengths against that team. And it's, the first line there, get opposing team's lineup and make a specific scouting report for your starter, right? And then we go through our 3-4 things that we use, right? Pitcher strengths, hitter's weakness, game situation, and then pitch recall. How do we pitch them in the past? What have they done damage on in the past against that specific starter, right? So we go through all that, right? And I think the more times that you go through this, the more you're going to retain it as well. So then once they do that with Brett, then it's their time. Do what you need. Is a hot tub, the cage. What are you going to need to get ready for the game? We let them go. Then about an hour before the game, they meet with the starter and with the pitching coach and Brett, and they go over how they're going to attack that hitter or how they're going to attack that team's hitters. And they make adjustments there on the fly, right? The starter might say, I want to pitch this guy this way, pitching coach this way. Okay, well, let's get this right, and let's all get on the same page with how we're going to do this.
How long does that
it doesn't take long because for the most part they're all on the same page, but there'll be times where some be like, I want to pitch this guy this way. I just feel this way about it. You'd be like, okay, like we could make that adjustment. But basically it's because all this prep work's already been done. This is just finalizing exactly what we're going to do, and if there's something in there that somebody doesn't like, they say, I'm not on that.
At the end of the day, you're my catcher and I'm not a rookie. So I've got a little bit of service time. You obviously have service time, because I imagine if I'm a rookie, my first ever start, I'm trusting you. But let's say we both have whatever amount of service time. I've got experience. You've got experience. We've got, pick a hitter, Ken Griffey Jr. And the scouting report says you do A, B, and C, but I'm not feeling A. Like, listen, I get it. I know that's what the data says, but I'm not feeling it. How does that conversation go? Do you say, hey man, listen, I mean, look at this data. He's hitting 086 again, blah, blah, blah. Or do you say, hey, listen, we want you comfortable. You're the pitcher. You're the guy throwing the ball. If you're not comfortable, that's fine. Let's figure out something else to do.
Yeah. So I always say, it's you have to have conviction as a pitcher in what you're going to throw. You know what I mean? So there'll be a lot of times where guys will shake when I know something's a right pitch, but I would rather have a pitcher convicted, committed to throwing one pitch than a suggestion that I put down, even if I know that it's right. And I think that's important. But there are times on the flip side of that where I know that this is the wrong pitch to throw, and that's the importance of a mound visit, and we, I know people get, upset with mound visits, but those mound visits are usually in crucial situations where we need to make sure that we're on the same page. And that's a lot of psychology in those meetings. It's, hey man, like your breaking ball looks really, really good right now. He's not going to handle your breaking ball. Knowing that guy wants to go a fastball up or a fastball in, we can kind of, talk them into, hey, your breaking ball it's sharp right now. I'm telling you, I believe that you can get it, and you make them believe that they can too. And then they'll go out there and execute that pitch. But I also say that everything is trumped by pitch execution, right? So, a lot of people pitch selection. I would say pitch execution over pitch selection, right? So if a pitcher is able to execute a pitch, that's the pitch we need to go to. It could sometimes be the wrong pitch, but if I know that pitcher is going to execute that pitch, it now becomes the right pitch.
Got it. All right. So yeah. So now we get the pregame routines you talked about. You get to the point where you're playing catch in the bullpen. So walk me through that part. What's important to know about that part of the pregame process?
Just as far as them getting ready to play.
Yeah, just the playing catch. I mean, like playing catch seems so simple, but just the ability to play catch and then catch the bullpen and all that stuff. Yeah.
So I always believe that, we talked about earlier, being present for the pitchers, right? And just playing catch with them before the game gives them that feeling of, okay, I'm not in this alone. He's here with me. He's done all of his stuff to get prepped for what he needs to be ready for the game. And now he's with me, getting me ready for the game. So, the pregame routines are, what do you need to be hot and ready for that first pitch? What do you need to do blocking wise to be ready for the first block in that game? What do you need to be ready for the first base runner that takes off for receiving? What do you need to be ready? Okay, we're ready. Now let's go take care of the pitcher. In that time, you can start evaluating him. Ball's not coming out good. He's kind of all over the place, even playing catch. He does his flat ground before he gets on the mound. His slider looks better than curveball. And that's kind of, that the process of evaluating, identifying what this guy's going to be capable of doing that day. Hey man, your breaking ball is not looking great. Throw me a couple more breaking balls. Or hey, it's your slider's not good. Let's throw a couple extra in between innings. You get the 8 pitches. Throw me 3 or 4 sliders so we can get that thing dialed in. And that's kind of what goes into that catch play before the game, catching the bullpen before the game, is any adjustments, anything you see, but also evaluating, because the first hitter of the game matters. We don't have time to get into that game
Right.
and try to feel our way through it. So we have to make sure, like, if something's playing better than something else, that's what we're going to use, until they can figure out the feel for the other pitches. That's basically what that pregame is.
Okay, I like this last one. Let the pitcher go into the dugout first. It's his day.
Yeah.
So you're talking about walking back from the bullpen to the dugout.
Mm-hmm.
Game's about to start.
Yeah.
I've never noticed. Like, I've never noticed that the catcher will then, because I always see them walking side by side. I guess I've never really noticed that the catcher will then kind of step back and let the pitcher walk in first.
Yeah, and that's just a thing that I mean, I don't know. It's just something I've always liked. If you ever watch us walk into the dugout, it's the starting pitcher, it's the starting catcher, Doug Mathis, the pitching coach, and myself. There's 4 of us walking into the dugout, and it's kind of like the parting. Because we all step aside and we allow that pitcher to walk through so he can go through, give his handshakes, whatever he needs first. Because it is about them, and we have a serve to lead mentality. We have a servant leadership. We take care of those guys. We show them that we care so that we can lead them in the direction they need to be. They know that we're all in on what's going to make them have the most success. And that's the beauty of the catcher position, is that we do everything in our power to make sure that we're prepared, ready for that guy, so that when he does need something, that he can come to us. Catchers are, for the most part, probably the most reliable guys in a clubhouse. Where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing, they're going to fight for you, they're going to do everything in their power for that pitcher. And that's kind of the message that we want to push across to our guys as well.
All right, so we had more stuff to get to today, but we're out of time for this episode, so we're just going to keep pushing this stuff back. There's so much to get to. So earlier we went over the molecule chart. Next time we'll go over a proper molecule charts in greater depth. Consider the umpire that night and what things that Bobby and the catchers and pitchers will look at based on who's calling balls and strikes and stuff of that nature. So obviously, as you're learning, if you didn't know already, there's so much that goes into this, and that's why we're not able to fit it into just 2 episodes. So we'll pick this up. We'll do another one next week, and we'll go into this right here, the molecule charts, and take you inside what a molecule chart truly is at greater depth. That work?
Sounds good to me.
All right, there you go. Thanks so much for being with us. More catching talk with catching up. That's kind of corny, but I like it. Catching up with Bobby Wilson. We'll do some more next week. Thanks so much for being with us.